two vets that we talked about earlier, Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic. So my question to you is, do you think it would make sense for the Pistons to keep vets like Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks? Or with the trading deadline, fastly approaching, are you seeing what you can get for Alec Burks? It's going to be a free agent this summer. You're going to try to see what you can get for Bojan Bogdanovic, because it seems like every veteran team, every championship level team, they really want to get a Bojan on their roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you definitely shop their values. I think that they are good pieces to have in this locker room, both on the court and off the court. But ultimately, I'm shopping these because I just have to acknowledge the state that the Pistons are in. And you do have multiple veterans, not just them. Those are probably the two best contributing veterans on the team. But you do have guys now like Gallinari in the locker room, like Muscala, who's, we're laughing at, but like has bounced around, has some NBA experience. Like for me, I understand the Pistons are approaching this deadline, and that's what makes me nervous as a team that's trying to avoid infamy, a team that's trying to avoid, being on the wrong side of history and have the worst record. And that scares me because I've seen, my Pistons make, the panic move before. And I don't necessarily think that a panic move is coming, but a slight panic move, I'm cautious of those. So like where I look at Bojan and Burks is like, typically what a team would do in this case with the Pistons is, you sell them off for a pick that you can, you can dangle, you can entice your fans is like, oh, this future first. And realistically, it's probably like the 27th pick, but you can act like it's going to be a lottery pick or whatever you have to do to your fan base to appease them. Or these seconds, and these seconds are like late first, basically. Like, you can jazz it up however you want. But I think if I'm the Pistons, I'm kind of threading the needle because Bojan, to me, while I like having him because of the contribution, clearly he's made this team better since he's come back. But I think you could find a guy who's younger. Like 34 is just such a difference. Like if he's 30, I'm like, okay, like keep that man. But 34 is literally, 10, 12, 13 years older than some of these guys. Like it doesn't really make too much sense to keep a guy at that point long term. So what you could do is I don't know if you've thought like this, but if I got Bojan, I'm making two calls. One, I'm making a call to the Knicks and seeing, okay, for Fournier and Grimes, or you could give us back the rights to our picks. Like you could just free up those protections. And that way New York is essentially not even giving up really anything. They're just relinquishing a protection. And that allows the Pistons more flexibility to make trades for picks if they want to go in for a star in the summer with all this cap space that they have. Or getting a guy like Quentin Grimes, who I think is a young, good player that's kind of fell out of rotation and I think has real value to a team like Detroit. Or the second call I'm making is the New Orleans Pelicans, because that is a team that is loaded with a bunch of players that I really like. Like Najee Marshall, like how many times do I got to watch this guy go from out of the rotation to scoring 20 points? Like Herb Jones is a guy that they consistently ranked over Cade Cunningham in top 100 lists in the NBA ridiculously. Like, and I like Herb. He's a good player, but obviously he's not Cade Cunningham. Like, but those kind of players, like the New Orleans, they have just one too many good players. Like they can definitely package two players to get a better player. And then you can kind of thread the needle. You're getting a younger guy who kind of fits more so your timeline, but also can kind of step in and contribute right away. And you don't have to necessarily like go the route of just getting picks and then selling the fan base on picks per se. Burks, it's probably a couple second rounders. So I think Burks, I'd be way more inclined to keep just because I think second rounders are cool. Like Troy's shown, hey, package a couple second rounders, get back into the first, get a guy like Sasser. Like I like that kind of move. But I'm not totally against keeping Burks because I think he is a contributing player on this team. I understand this team wants to avoid having the worst record in NBA history. But if I'm Bojan, to me, he's a little too old. I think he's a damn good player. I think he's helped this team a lot. So I think you make some calls on him, but Burks, I definitely don't mind keeping because I do believe in the value of a vet in the locker room. Where are you at with him?
I think with Burks, and I heard something the other day, and I was just like, it almost kind of made me sick to my stomach. And like I like Alec Burks as a player, I do. But there are times it looks like he thinks he's Kobe Bryant out there. Like he doesn't pass the ball at all. He just shoots it. Like there'll be
Yeah,
possessions where he just does not pass the ball. And obviously, I get he's a vet. He's gonna be a UFA. I heard they want to bring him back, and I'm like, there's no way this guy is coming back for 10 million. And you
yeah,
have a projection anywhere from 50 to $60 million in cap space. I could only imagine what a price tag for him could be. Probably 15, 20 million to bring him back. Like straight
yeah,
up. Like I could see the Pistons doing that. Like, spending a majority of their cap space to bring back a vet that has had his moments here, but hasn't really contributed to winning. He's not a vet that has actually helped this regime in the win total. For
yeah,
me, I would try to sell off on Burks. And I know Houston offered multiple seconds uh, for Alec Burks when the Kevin Porter Jr. stuff happened. Detroit didn't want anything to do with that. They rejected the trade. Don't really know what they're looking for, but I can guarantee you there's be contending teams out there that could give you something. If you're looking for picks, they'll probably give you picks. You're looking for maybe a guy at the end of their bench that they don't really use a lot. Maybe they could do it that way. He's on a cheap deal, like $10 million. You can get a quality player for $10 million, in my opinion.
yeah. I
Um,
agree.
as for Bojan, I think I struggle with this. But it's because I talk to reporters and they say, well, the Pistons want to be good next year and they want to keep Bojan. I'm like, okay,
I
he's
get that.
34. Like, I don't know how many more years this guy has left in the tank. I would assume maybe like another year or two,
Mhm.
especially the way the Pistons use him. Like, Bojan should not be getting 15 to 20 shots a game on a
Yeah,
rebuilding Pistons team. He just shouldn't. He shouldn't be your second leading scorer behind Cade Cunningham. Um, I think if I'm Detroit, I'm looking to try to get maximum value for Bojan. Um, whether that's doing a deal with the Mavericks because they're always interested. To your point with the Knicks thing, we have mentioned that at nauseum, getting our pick back,
yeah,
maybe taking on Fournier, reuniting, Quentin Grimes and Marcus Sasser, having two Houston Cougars on the Detroit Pistons. I mean, I think there's so many opportunities to get creative with trade packages for Bojan, but the Pistons just seem so unserious in terms of trying to trade him. Their asking price for him, I think, is actually ridiculous. They want a
mhm,
first round pick and a good player for a 34-year-old that, for all intents and purposes, should be coming off a bench for a contending championship team.
yeah,
But you're one of the worst teams in basketball, and he's a second option, getting 15 to 20 shots a game.
yeah,
Um, I think if you were to trade both of these guys, I mean, Marcus Sasser is going to get so much playing time if you trade Alec Burks. And I think if you trade Bojan, who knows what you get back, but that would open more minutes for Asar Thompson. Seems like he can't even get off the bench nowadays. And he
yeah.
was playing like high 30s to start the season.
Frustrates me.
Um, my biggest thing with this organization right now is they're so hard on the rookies and they critique every little thing they do, but the veterans get a pass. The
Yeah,
veterans don't get talked to. The veterans don't get held accountable like Jaden Ivey does. I think that's my biggest issue
I
with
agree.
this whole coaching staff. And I know I'm kind of going a little bit off topic, but I know there are fans that want to bring back Burks. I'm just telling you, he's not going to sign for 10 million. Hell no. He's like, I think he's 31 or 32 as well. He's probably going to want at least 15 to 20. Boyan's 34. Like, I don't know what the Pistons are trying to do. Like, they want to have like a 3-4 combo of like a Tobias Harris and a Bojan Bogdanovic as your power forward and your small forward. I don't know. Maybe that gets you 25 wins. Like, I don't know what the end goal is for this team
Yeah.
personally.
I'll tell you what that doesn't get you is a lot of defensive stops. That doesn't
Yeah.
get you a lot of defensive stops. It helps your offense. It helps your offense for sure. But as we're seeing with some of these teams, like Indiana, I think, is the most extremist of the extreme results of like, oh, you can only go so far being so good on one end and abysmal on the other. So I don't think that's necessarily smart for the Pistons to lean into. But yeah, I just think, yeah, instead of trading Burks, okay, if you get a bunch of second rounders, like I said, I'm cool with that. I'm also cool with keeping them and riding it out because I definitely don't want the Pistons to have the worst record in NBA history. But I don't think at the end of the day, I don't think keeping him or trading him is the most defining move. But Bojan, I think you have to get it right. I think you have to, like you said, instead of picks, just look at players. Unless we get our own picks back, I do think there's real value in that because then you can, like we said, go into the summer with all your picks. And obviously those picks are very enticing because the Pistons are the Pistons. And if you want to mortgage the future for a star, you can do that under the assumption that you have a young core like Cleveland did for Donovan Mitchell. Like you can do that kind of move. And, and we're seeing, it looked rocky a couple months ago. It looked like, ooh, why did Cleveland do that? And now it's like, okay, it's they got to figure some things out, but this isn't the worst scenario to be in. So, I think that route, or just like you said, getting good players that can benefit the team right now that just quite frankly more fit the timeline. Like again, the 34 thing kills me. If he's 30, I get it. If he's 28, 29, like keep him for sure. But he has tons of miles left, and 28, 28 is a lot different than 22, 21. Like how I think at 28 versus how I thought at 21, way different, So it's like you don't have to have like a 36-year-old to be like, to be the guy that relates to these guys. Like, you could be a 28-year-old and you can teach these guys young things. You can do those kinds of things. So yeah, I think Bojan's the one that got to trade. I'm with you though. I don't think they will. Yeah. I think they're going to be very, very, very hell bent on keeping him. But I ultimately I would love for them to trade Bojan, and that's no disrespect to what Bojan's been this year. Like I said, second leading scorer. He's been obviously important to a team that hasn't won a lot of games, but at some point you have to do long-term pitch. You have to do a long-term play here. And Bojan is not your long-term play.